Hey y'all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Carrie, and here on Caring with Carrie, we talk all things kids. If you've been following along, you know that I have done nanny content in the past, homeschool content, and that is going to be switching more so over to mommy content with my daughter. I'll still be doing educational things. You'll see Montessori activities that I do with her and things like that, but I am no longer a nanny, so I will be updating that kind of more what that's about at the end of the video. But I wanted to start out with Charlotte's birth story. It's been a month. Actually, today marks a month of my baby girl being earthside. And I know that that's been kind of a long time of me not updating you guys. As you can imagine, having a newborn as a first-time mom has been quite the experience. And I have hardly found the time. She's actually napping right now and should be napping for another hour. We'll see. If she doesn't, you know what, I'm just going to bring her in this video with me. Hopefully I'll introduce her to you at the end of this video anyways. So let's get into it. First of all, I ended up having a C-section. If you've been here for a little while, you know that that is the last thing that I wanted. I dreamed, even before I was pregnant, of having a home water birth and all natural. And it's funny how God sometimes humbles us and says, you know what, that's not my plan for you. So we did try the natural route. At 36 weeks, she was right outside the other side of my cervix, and I was 50% effaced with a really soft cervix. Come 38 weeks, she was no longer there. She was back up. They kept saying the term sky high, nowhere near the cervix. And so my cervix was still soft and all that, but nothing else promising. So, you know, we decided we're gonna keep waiting it out. 39 weeks comes, 40 weeks comes, another check, and she's still sky high, no change. The midwife actually pushed through my cervix manually with that check to see if she could feel her. No. That was very painful, by the way. And we began to talk about the plan moving forward once we hit 40 weeks. And my mom was coming into town for the sole reason of helping me care for the baby in the beginning, and she wasn't going to be able to change her dates at all. So we were going to try to accommodate that and just see, you know, if we could kickstart some things for her to come naturally. We decided to do a cook balloon induction. Now, the midwife kept referring to it as a cook balloon. That's an outdated method. Usually what's used nowadays is a Foley bulb. And when she showed it to me and explained to me how it worked, it is a Foley bulb that they used. So, I don't know why they still call it a cook balloon. Maybe in their minds it's interchangeable, but a cook balloon actually just has one part that inflates, whereas a Foley balloon has two parts that inflate on either side of the cervix. I did want to talk about that because when I was going to be induced using that method, I was really quite nervous, having not done any research on it really. And the only thing that I could find out about it was that it hurt really, really bad, and that it was worse than labor. Literally all I could find on Foley bulb cook balloon inductions. So I was like, you know what, when I'm done with this, I am going to put out a video that does talk about it. So I was, you know, using my hypnobirthing. I was completely prepared for it to be very painful. When they inserted it, it was like hardly anything. When they inflated it, hardly anything. Okay, so I will say when they were inserting it, I was in hypnosis. I had gotten myself to fall into the hypnosis state so that I could be completely relaxed. And my husband actually said that the midwife and the nurse were asking me questions and that I didn't say anything. because they were like worried that I wasn't okay. And then I remember them saying something about like, oh, like she must be using that hypnobirthing she talked about, because she is like out of it. And I kind of remember them saying that. I have no idea what like questions they asked me or whatever, or don't remember them talking to me outside of that. So I think they were, you know, maybe coming like towards the end of putting it in, when they were saying about the hypnobirthing or hypnosis, whatever. So I will say that probably helped a lot, but I still don't think that even if I hadn't used that it would have been so painful that it was worse than labor. I mean, technically, I don't know what labor feels like. Technically. We'll get into that. The midwife was like, oh yeah, if you get the Foley bulb, it's going to dilate you anywhere from 3 to 6 centimeters, and then we put you on Pitocin, that which starts the contractions, and then, you know, you should be able to go into labor. Well, let me just tell you, I've had some exhausting nights between then and now, you know, having a newborn. I have never had such an exhausting, uncomfortable night. So I was very nauseous. That's first thing off the bat. And when I am nauseous, it is, for me, because my body fights it so much, like fights getting sick, it overtakes me mentally. And it is extremely hard to deal with. For some reason, it just really, I have a hard time being nauseous without just completely letting it shut me down. Then I was having like constipation, which is crazy because I had been having the opposite. And then it's all of a sudden like this wall. And the bad part about that is like my body kept trying to go and it couldn't. So I was just crying on the toilet. Had a stool, all the things, you know. Obviously I had been taking my stool softener for some towards the end. And yeah, that's not the worst part. So the worst part was my legs for the entire night felt like they were falling asleep, but that they weren't quite asleep. So they were in that stage where they weren't quite tingly, but they hurt. So it's like my legs hurt all night long to the point where I couldn't sleep more than 5 minutes at a time. And I'm pretty sure it's because when they inflated the balloon, it was like pressing on a nerve somehow. Or baby girl was somehow pressing on a nerve, but it only happened like whenever they had the Foley balloon in. So, and they were delayed in taking it out too, which made it even harder. And obviously my hormones are all over the place, right? So then they start me on Pitocin after they take it out, which by the way, taking it out was nothing. Felt great, it was fine. They said it only dilated me to a 3, and they started me on Pitocin. And the way they do it is it's by 2s. They start at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and every 30 minutes they bump it up. And there were a few times where they didn't quite come at the 30-minute mark or whatever. And I believe it was around 9 in the morning that they ended up taking out the Foley balloon. From 9 in the morning all the way until like 6 p.m. I was on Pitocin, and they upped it all the way up to 24. Now 20 is supposed to be like the highest you can go, but they told me technically they can go up to 40. They have to get special permission to go over 20 though. So they got special permission. I was put up to 24. Throughout the whole day, I would feel a contraction here and there, but even though I was having constant, regular contractions, I was not feeling them. Like hardly at all. And I would just, like I said, here and there, and they really weren't painful. Like I would just have to breathe through it, and that's it. Like it was like, I'm very interested to know what real labor feels like, and it was encouraging to me in a way, because I'm like, okay, if I can be on level 24 Pitocin, which is supposed to be like the worst contractions, like Pitocin contractions are supposed to be horrific. If I'm on level 24 Pitocin and having regular contractions, and I'm barely feeling, like what is labor going to be like? I'm sure it'll actually be worse when I've got a head pushing on my cervix. I think that's probably why I didn't have a hard time with it, because she was still sky high, as they said. So that was the main issue, is when they did the check at the end of the day, I was still only 3 centimeters, and she was sky high still. And at this point, I'm 40 weeks and some odd days. Basically, my midwife came in and she's like, so it's very possible that she is too big to come down, and that's why she hasn't come down yet. Because gestational diabetes babies have a lot of padding here and here, so shoulders and neck. For some reason, gestational diabetes babies have a lot right here in this area, and I will put some pictures up right here of when she was born, and you can definitely see that extra padding that she had there. She's just come back to her birth weight as of yesterday, but she, you know, lost that pretty quickly after birth, and she doesn't look anything like that now. But yeah, at birth she was just chunk up here. So they said you can wait it out, you can you know, eventually your body is going to go into labor on its own, and see if your body can get her down there, or somehow make her fit, or have a C-section. And they said, here's the thing to consider. They make one cut with a C-section, but if she's too big, it was 10 pounds 14 ounces that they were saying she was on the ultrasound. So they were like, we may have to do a T-cut, which is a vertical cut, if she's too big to get out of the one cut. And if you do a T-cut, there's no way you have a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after C-section. And I definitely want to try for that for baby number 2. God forbid I get gestational diabetes again. So they said, you know, you can definitely, we're not going to tell you have to get a C-section, but it's possible that you end up having to have one anyways if you go into natural labor and she's too big to come down into your pelvis. We decided that it was going to be the safest option for her to come via C-section, which was a hard decision to make. My mom at the time was still here, and I was exactly 41 weeks on the day of the C-section. So my mom was able to be in the hospital room with us, and my husband was able to be in the hospital room with us, but nobody else was allowed to come visit or anything like that. Like, basically anybody who wanted to visit had to look from the window outside, because it's a 1-floor hospital. It's a really small hospital. So I did kind of want to talk about the C-section itself, because that was another thing that I didn't really find a whole lot of people talking about, and I will try my best to kind of remember everything. The night before the C-section, you can't eat or drink anything after midnight, and literally the worst part about that was not being able to drink. I was just so extremely thirsty, and they kept pushing my C-section back and back and back that morning. So we got in there, I want to say like maybe 5:30 in the morning. It was pretty early, and I don't think we went back for my C-section until like, they didn't start prepping me for it until 9:30. They have you sign like a bunch of release forms, they give you some medication, and they gave me a little bit of water with that medication, because some of it was pills, and I was like, thank you Jesus. I had a little bit of water. They started the IV soon after that, so it wasn't as bad, but I was so thirsty. This is something that I wish I had known, because I was not expecting to have a C-section. I was 40 weeks 6 days on the appointment, and that we came in to see the midwife, and that day we decided we were going to do C-section, and the next morning is when I got it done, like early the next morning. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. I just wanted to sleep and not like just be on my phone looking up stuff all night about C-sections. But I will say that what I have seen about C-sections, I did not hear anything about this. I would suggest getting waxed or shaving down there, or have your husband do it, because I know you can't see, girl. Shave down there, because otherwise they are going to shave you and it's a little awkward. I mean, you're like used to having everything out for all the nurses to see anyways, but I don't know, it's a next level when you're laying there and you can't even see what's going on and you just feel bzzz, like down there, okay? Like you just save yourself, because if I mean, I had trimmed, but it had been a while because I can't freaking see down there. Plus, when you're super pregnant, you like kind of don't care. You're like, oh, I can't see down there, so whatever. Just do it yourself, because then when you get there, you won't have to do it. Even if you're like planning on doing a natural birth, just in case, you know, stay down there. Okay, moving on. It's just something I wish I had known. So then they bring me back and Tyler has to go ahead and gown up, and so he's separated from me for this next point. They give me anesthesia. Now, anesthesia makes me very nauseous, very sick. During this time, they also like they give you this spinal block, same thing, I don't know, but they have you like bend over and like stick out your back and just try to stay super still. It hurts, like that freaking hurts. You know, I just breathe through it, and the nurse was like, wow, you're doing better than most people do with this, because however many times they had to stick me back there, like, it was not fun. And I didn't have Tyler, I just had like a nurse in front of me. I think it was really hard for me too to feel my legs slowly going to sleep. That feeling of being able to feel my toes and move my toes but nothing else, like, that was really hard. And the feeling of being numb for me, like, it really like is almost kind of like nails on a chalkboard for me. It like really irritates me, because I remember when I was pregnant, if I didn't sleep a certain way with my arm like extended out a certain way, I would lose circulation in my arm all the time when I was pregnant, and especially when I was trying to sleep, and it would keep me from sleeping. It was just a pain in the butt because I would be so exhausted and I couldn't sleep because my freaking arm, I would lose circulation in it doing just anything. I mean, like sitting here and I'll lose circulation in my arm when I was pregnant for some reason. It's the worst for me. Like that, I don't like it. Granted, I know the whole C-section process is like 30 minutes, 45 minutes tops, and labor's a lot longer than that, so I shouldn't be complaining, but I'm just putting out there kind of what I didn't expect and what went down for anybody who might be curious. So then they lay me back and Tyler's able to come in, and at this point they bring him in like right before they start cutting, because they have to make sure the area is sterile. At this point I had started to feel a little queasy and nervous. You know, Tyler just came over, he was nervous too, so he just kept talking like random stuff to me to keep my mind off of whatever was going on. And I just went along with it because I was trying to stay, you know, calm as well. But the feeling of nausea like makes me kind of jittery in and of itself. So you don't feel pain as far as, you know, the incision and them getting your guts out and putting your guts back, but you feel pressure, and it's really uncomfortable, and it kind of like even makes it hard to breathe at some points for me. It felt like it was taking them forever to get to her and get her out. It probably wasn't that long, but it felt like it was like 15 minutes from when they started cutting to when they actually got her out. I don't know if it was that long. I was a little out of it, but it felt like that long. So during that time, everything's a little bit of a blur, and I asked for them to do a clear drape so that they could drop the blue halfway and let me see her when they first took her out. So when they first took her out, I don't think she was crying right away, so they wanted to like get her crying, so they didn't let me see her for more than a few seconds. So they just like lifted her up, and all I remember is that my body went straight, like immediately, to straight up sobbing. there was no like slow cry buildup. Like normally when you get to sobbing, it's, you know, you start crying and you build up to sobbing. My body went from not crying to all of a sudden I was sobbing as soon as I saw her. And I could not stop crying, like hardcore crying. So Tyler was like, okay, I'm gonna go over with her, babe, and take the pictures that you want and all that. So, because I told him, I was like, ever since I knew I was pregnant, the one thing that I wanted out of my birth experience, no matter how it happened, the only thing I cared about was getting and capturing her first cry. Because anytime I heard that in somebody's birth story or birth vlog, I just cried. I lost it. And that's so special to me. So I'm actually going to insert a clip here of her first cry.
That's why she didn't want those monitors.
Look at her. It is beautiful. And I'm so glad Tyler was able to capture it. You're not allowed to record video in the OR, but you can take pictures. And iPhone takes live pictures. So yes, that is how we got the first cry. And I'm so thankful for that, honestly. She was 9 pounds 4 ounces when she was born, so quite a bit off of what the ultrasound was saying. I was expecting the ultrasound to be off a little, you know, like half a pound either way, maybe even up to a pound, but it was 1 pound and 10 ounces off. That's quite a bit. So she was 19 inches long, born at 10:17 in the morning on November 10th, 2021. In the time that she was born to when Tyler went over there to see her and be with her, I ended up getting sick. And that was horrible because you're laying flat on your back. You can't do anything except lay there like a freaking invalid. And you're like, bleh. It is just so, it's horrific. I could like feel, I could like feel it getting me. You know, I hadn't eaten anything, so it's just freaking stomach acid. It's so gross and it's just all over me. I felt like the anesthesiologist, because I don't think I had a nurse up there, I think I just had her, felt like she wasn't paying attention to me. She may have been, but I just felt like she wasn't. And it took her like a second to realize I had gotten sick. And I was like, I felt really alone because, you know, they're doing, people up here are kind of like doing stuff on my belly, and then, you know, she's up here and Tyler's gone, and I can hear her crying, but I'm really just like, oh, because I'm like really sick. And then again, I felt like she up here was, you know, and the other nurses were all around the baby. So in that moment, in those moments when they were putting me back together, I felt very alone, and like I don't know, it's just, I was uncomfortable. I had just gotten sick. I didn't feel any better after getting sick. I, you know, was feeling alone, and then I was feeling uncomfortableness with them like putting me back together, and it was like like I don't know how else to describe it other than it felt like someone was like just pressing really hard into my stomach or something. It's kind of what it felt like. So it's just, I don't know, that was probably the worst part of the whole experience. They were finishing up, and I thought I heard the doctor say that he was like handing the needle off to, you know, one of the nurses, like, here comes the needle, or something like that. But they ended up putting staples in me, so I don't know what that was about. But I think they were finishing up. They had finally stopped like pressing as much, and so I could finally feel like I could breathe some, and the nausea was kind of fading off. I think she had turned down the anesthesia, or turned it off, because I was still going to be under its effects for a little while, but I didn't need it anymore because they were finishing up. So I was starting to feel better, and they weren't doing as much pushing around in there, all that. I had put everything back in that point. I think that they actually took down the drapes some or something, because I could look across the room, and whereas I couldn't before. But I could look across the room and I saw Tyler holding Charlotte, and he was just standing there looking around, and he's holding her. He wasn't sure if I was feeling okay, because he saw me kind of not feeling great and looking like I was pretty sick. So he was waiting to come over until I looked like I was more there and feeling better. So as soon as I saw him and we made eye contact, I smiled at him, and he immediately came over. He told me he felt relieved when he saw me smile, to know that I was okay. And so he came over with the baby, and I got to just look at my baby girl. And these moments are honestly kind of hard for me to remember. But soon after that, they put her on me, and she was still wrapped in the blanket, but they did try to latch her and all that stuff. So that's a whole nother thing. I ended up being able to get discharged the next night, so I only had to stay like a day and a half after having a C-section, which is pretty great. And it was great because it meant that Tyler's parents could meet her in person, didn't have to wait as long, and my dad also was able to meet her. He didn't come up until like the last day that my mom was here. He was here for that last day, and that was it. So they say with C-sections to walk around, and when you walk around they say make sure that you're standing straight up, even though it hurts to do so, because otherwise it will heal back together. If you slouch over, it'll heal back together like that. Then you're like forever slouch. That's what one of the moms told me. So I was like, okay, one of the nurses told me that's how hers healed back. I actually was, I'm on the pain medication, so I felt pretty great. And I didn't try to do too much, but I feel like I did enough to, for the healing to go really well. And literally the worst part was one of the medications makes your face itch like crazy. And my face, especially right here, like around my nose, for some reason, it was the worst. To the point where I scratched myself raw, and I had like raw skin, and I ended up like scabbing over some places. Like, that's how bad it is. And they give you medication to help with the itching, but that was the only medication I ever asked for, was the itching one. Everything else I was fine with the regular doses. And apparently the nurses were telling the midwife, like, the reason I was able to be discharged early is because they were like, we're so surprised that she's hardly on any medication. She's doing so well. So that's part of why they let me go home early, is because I supposedly wasn't on a lot of medication. I thought I was on the normal amount, but maybe other women like ask for more. I don't know. So this whole experience made me wonder if I have a pain tolerance that is high. I hope so, because I really want to try for that feedback naturally. So then coming home was great, because I had my mom here, my dad here, Tyler here, and after my parents left, my mother-in-law also took off time to help. So honestly, that first week, even into my second week, I had so much help that I was able to rest a bunch. I didn't have to worry about anything. They honestly took really good care of Charlotte. The pediatrician at the hospital said she doesn't have any tongue ties or lip ties. But about day 3 of her life, I had, up to this point, I had had some pain with breastfeeding. And I was trying to make sure that she was getting a deep latch and all that stuff, but nothing was working. And she was also starting to get blisters all along the top of her lip, not just right here in the middle, but all along the top. And the way that she was dropping weight was alarming. So day 3, I had the most painful, I had finally gotten her to latch, but it was so extremely painful that I was close to screaming. I was sobbing. I'm like tearing up thinking about it because it was at that moment that I realized something was wrong and I wanted to do everything and anything in my power to fix it. Pediatrician was like, she definitely has a lip tie, but she barely has a little tongue tie. She referred us to a place in Chattanooga, which is like a 3-hour drive, but we were gonna do it. And my mother-in-law was so awesome. She drove us there and drove us back the whole way. It was really nice. The only thing that sucked is anytime we went over like a bridge, like a little connecting bridge on the interstate or the highway, my C-section scar. It hurt. You know, you kind of have to like hold it anytime you laugh or sneeze. Like you have to hold. Yeah, it hurt. When we got there, they said she's got a very tight, short, 3rd-degree tongue tie that will need to get lasered. And she has a 4th-degree lip tie, wraps all the way around her gum. The lip tie was not medically necessary for them to do anything about, therefore it would be a liability for them to do something about it. So they just left it for now. And they lasered her tongue. When they brought her back in, they tried to latch her. They used like a ton of sugar water. Just squirting sugar water down her throat to try to get her to latch. And they were like trying to push more of my boob into her mouth. She's screaming. Then she latches and she's eating. And it still hurts. And I'm guessing it's because my nipples and breasts were sore from her trying to eat and latch the first few days. I think she just still didn't have a deep enough latch at the time. I don't know, but the person who did the frenectomy, she made me uncomfortable and that didn't help the whole situation. So it was just really, I was so thankful to have her tongue tie release that I felt like, especially now, I feel like maybe we could have waited some and found a better place to do it, possibly even closer. I think the only reason that we had to go that far is because insurance covered it or something at that location, whereas other locations didn't maybe, or other locations were going, like I know that one of them wanted thousands of dollars for a 5-second cut, like with a laser, like, and we couldn't do that obviously, and it was going to be up front, and then they were like, oh, then you submit to your insurance for reimbursement. Oh, we didn't have that kind of money. It was kind of like our only option, but I know that supposedly subsequent children have ties if your first one does. So I'm gonna have to figure out where to take baby number 2, and maybe we just end up having to pay ridiculous amounts of money to go closer. But I don't know that I want to go back to that place again. It was also really hard because I had read online about other places, how they do the procedure and how they involve the parents and all that. They took her away from us at a week old, and we could hear her screaming in another room while they did the procedure, and that was the hardest thing. I was sitting there crying because I knew that she was hurting and she was away from us. And I couldn't see her, I could just hear her, and that was horrible. After that point, we continued to try to breastfeed using a nipple shield and all that. You know, it's been a month now and she just doesn't want to latch. She just gets really mad at the breast. Trust me, believe me, I have tried everything. I've been seeing a lactation consultant from day 3 of her life, so believe me, I am educated and aware of everything and anything I could be doing to help her latch. Listen, we bottle feed, but we do it the right way. We have the slowest flow possible with the nipple. We do paced feedings. We have her sitting upright. We make sure that we take the bottle out of her mouth every 10-15 sucks. We burp her every half ounce to an ounce. Trust me, we're doing all the things that should be helping her to not prefer the bottle over the breast. And guess what? It still happens. The lactation consultant suggested trying a dessert feed where we feed her a full bottle and then just try to latch her and see if she'll just, even if it's just for pacifying, just see if she'll at least latch. Because there would be times where she would latch, it would be shallow, and she would just suck like a pacifier. Or even if it wasn't a shallow latch, she'd still just not really suck to get anything out of it. Wasn't swallowing. Well, this one night, the same night that I had a lactation consultant tell me to try the dessert feed, I was able to latch her. She stayed latched for an hour, and actually I had to break the seal because after an hour I was like, Mom, I need to go to bed. Like, it's been an hour, she's probably, good. And she did not want to come off. It was actually hard for me to get her off, but she had a deep latch and she swallowed. So I know that she got sustenance. And I talked with my lactation consultant about this yesterday, actually. I think for me, my brain had like a mental block, maybe, where once she was able to actually, for the first time ever in her life, have a feed that was not painful for me and was just beautiful, an hour of connection and bonding where I was like, my body is providing her sustenance. After that point, I was able to be more okay with her when she didn't latch. Before that point, if I would try to latch her and she didn't latch, oh, it was so hard. I would just sob every time, because I'm like, okay, the breast is a two-way valve. So basically, like, when your baby's mouth is there, the saliva, your body kind of takes account of the bacteria in your baby's mouth via the saliva and everything. And if your baby is sick or something, it will start to produce antibodies or things to help the baby's immune system. So basically, like, obviously being able to breastfeed is the best possible thing. Because yes, pumping is great, and that's what I'm having to do now. But it's not quite as great as her being there in my breast, like giving her exactly what she needs down to matching her needs, because it's intaking what she needs via like her saliva and stuff. In my mind, I was like, okay, God, I know that my body was created to breastfeed. It is the best thing for her, like for her body. It's the best thing for brain development, for body growth, everything. And so it was really hard for me to understand why God would not allow that to be a part of his plan when it's what's, in my mind, what is like scientifically best for her, right? After that point though, anytime she would latch, after I had that one successful time, anytime she wouldn't latch, I didn't cry anymore. I was just kind of like, okay, it's fine. It's what it is. And I think I was able to come to peace with it and understanding that I would still at least be able to pump. So she's getting some breast milk. She was still on donor milk at this time too, because I think day 4 of her life I was able to get donor milk, and that helped out a bunch. So yes, we're still having to supplement with formula because I'm not producing enough for her to just solely be on my breast milk. I've come to realize that it's very possible that whatever work opportunity God allows me to do next is not conducive to breastfeeding, and I would need to pump anyways. And also, I've been able to see Tyler and Tyler's parents and Tyler's brother and brother's fiance all be able to bond with her by being able to give her a bottle. And that's really special. It was so special. And they love being able to help out, and it helps me out too. So maybe God knew that mentally I wouldn't be able to handle the load of having to feed her all the time if I was the source of food. So God does know best, and it was definitely a hard journey getting here, but I'm here and I'm thankful for it. So yeah, I pretty much try to pump every time that she needs to eat, like after every time. So I stay at least 1 feeding ahead, but I don't produce enough, and I honestly think it's I don't drink enough water or eat enough food during the day. And I've tried, and you know what, it is what it is. So we do have some donor milk. We're trying to just go through extremely slowly and reserve that as much as possible. When we're out of that donor milk though, I'm not going to ask for any more. I've gotten donor milk from 3 different people at this point, and I don't want to take any donor milk away from itty bitty babies. That's the plan. And then after that donor milk is gone, we'll just switch to my milk only, and I know that will mean more formula than normal, but that's what we'll do as well. She has been having weight gain issues as well. As I said, she's a month old now, and she just got back to her birth weight. So I think that was kind of because of everything going on in the beginning with the tongue ties. So now I think we're okay. She's eating a bunch, she's fine, she's gaining weight well. So we're really thankful for that. She's finally, you know, gaining weight. Real quick, I just wanted to go over, I was a nanny for 3 different families. One of the families I was having some issues with that I wanted to sit down and kind of go over with them about and work out with them. But then they kind of showed more of their true colors. Basically, there were some issues with me going on my maternity leave. I was put into several unprofessional situations, and it was all around just not healthy for me or my mental health. I was taken advantage of unprofessionally many times, and so 2 of the families were willing to take me on alone and encourage me to, you know, go with my gut and my heart and be okay with leaving the one family, just, you know, because they told me that they were going to be able to support me and they had my back and they would be able to pay me what I could, what I should be paid, like for my qualifications and experience and all of that, and the quality of care I give. Baby girl was 12 days old, and we get a call where basically we were told we can't afford to use you as a nanny. Sorry. Lost my job with the 12-day-old baby on my maternity leave. And guess who didn't get paid the rest of her maternity leave either? Now, mind you, I had given the main family a 4-week notice. I could have given them a 2-week notice and waited, but I wanted to try to do the right thing as much as possible. And I was, again, taken advantage of, and they only gave me 2 more weeks of pay. It was 50% pay too. So, yeah. It has been really hard to be present with my daughter while I'm applying for jobs like crazy. Most nanny families don't want you to bring your own kids. I'm a part of 5 different nanny agencies in my area. 5. And that's pretty much the case across the board. I have put out applications for like data entry and customer service jobs. I have just like any work from home job, I have applied to it. Like, if you can think about it, I've applied to it. I have still attempted to try to find a nanny job too through many different avenues, including creating a Facebook page for the sole purpose of this, and looking on job boards, but also on care.com and on Facebook and literally anywhere and anything that I could find. And so far, I will say, okay, this morning I have 2 jobs that it looks like are promising, finally. After having applied to hundreds of jobs at this point, I have 2 that are promising and hopeful looking. They're not nanny jobs, they're work from home jobs, which I would personally love anyways, because it would mean that it would just be me and my daughter and I could care for her here and wouldn't have to be taking my car out, and I would have more flexible schedule and all of that, because in order to get paid the amount that I need to get paid in order to be driving anywhere, like I would have to be driving an hour and a half away to get like the amount of pay that I would need to pay the bills to make up for the drive, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because the people around here make like a lower income, and I've been working an hour away from home with my last nanny job, so I was making like enough to offset that. But you know, with the whole job situation, that's again another thing where God was like, hey, trust me, like we're moving forward, new chapter, old chapter is closed, this is a new season of life, you've got a brand new baby daughter, and I am going to take care of you. So we're trusting God right now. We are good to go through the end of the year, and even a little bit beyond that, because thankfully Tyler's work gave him an amazing bonus, an amazing Christmas bonus, and without it we wouldn't have been able to do this. But we're able to survive from now until the end of December, and then a little bit over into January. But hopefully I'll have a job before then, and if not, I do plan on driving with DoorDash just to make something coming in until I can find a job. So I have also been applying for jobs that are not work from home jobs. I got into that point of desperation. I know that in most cases, if you want to put your kid up in a daycare, the waiting list, especially for infants, is usually extremely long, and you have to like basically be 3 months pregnant or less when you get on the list in order to have a spot when the baby's born, or at 6 weeks or whatever. And because I did not expect to need care anywhere, I am not on any waiting list whatsoever. So that's gonna be another tough thing, is if for some reason I am able to get a job that's not a work from home job and I can't bring my daughter, then it will be tough to kind of find a spot for her to be somewhere, and that will be hard on me too, which I'm sure some of you know that feeling. So I know that this has been a really long video, but it's been a couple months since I've updated you, so there's a lot to kind of squish into one video. And I do hope to try to do a couple videos upcoming where I do a day in the life routine video with my newborn, and a newborn essentials video where I kind of go through what is absolutely essential as a new mom. So if you are looking forward to those videos, please comment down below, like this video, it helps me out. I do not make any money on YouTube yet. I have to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours on my channel to start making any kind of income, but that would obviously help me out a bunch right now. So please share the video with your friends, family, my channel, and again, I hope to get into a rhythm and routine where I can be putting out regular content that is actually helpful to you. This is Charlotte Ann. Oh, it's about time for her to wake up and eat. She is a month old today, so she still smells like a newborn, but barely. Barely, huh? Oh, the stretches. The stretches. Oh, you say hi? Goodness, oh, that face. Oh, she said, Mommy, I'm not ready to wake up. No, not ready to wake up. We are so proud of her. She's rolled her eyes. She makes us laugh every day. Oh, goodness. Okay, say bye. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.